Hello and welcome back to my reflective space. I just wanted to include this quick disclaimer to say that the audio in this episode is not the best. I didn't realise when I was recording, but my audio from my phone, which is what I usually use as my mic, was not recording, or it just somehow stopped in the middle of me filming. And I didn't realise until after I'd finished filming, which was really annoying. And the perfectionist in me wanted to re-record the whole thing, and this recording was actually the second time I was doing it, so it would have been the third time that I was recording the same episode. But I'm trying to challenge myself to not immediately listen to that instinct of my perfectionism, and I did my best to do what I can to the audio so that it's still coherent, and I know, or I'm trying to learn, that there is still value in the things that I make, even if it's not perfect or exactly the way that I want it to be. So this is also why I still wanted to post this, to challenge myself. So I've done what I can. I still think there is so much to take from this episode, and you can still hear what I'm saying, but there is just a lot of background noise at certain points, so I just wanted to include that as a disclaimer at the start. I still hope that you can find something to take from this episode, and I will let the recording play now. Hello and welcome back to my reflective space. Today I wanted to talk a bit about low mood, as I think it's something that a lot of us have experienced throughout our lives in one way or another, but something that many of us may struggle to know how to deal with. Reflecting on my own experiences with low mood, I think the most significant period of time where I was really struggling with it was in the transition to university. It was a really big change for me. I wasn't used to so many of the things that come with going to university, whether that be living alone, living away from my family, learning to do things by myself, making new friends, getting used to the whole structure of university and how it's so much more reliant on independent learning. For context as well, I moved to London for university about 3 years ago, and I've grown up overseas, so my family didn't move with me, so it was a really big adjustment as a whole. And I know that a lot of people that grew up with me overseas as well and made that same transition were experiencing similar things, but all in kind of different ways. One of the bigger challenges as well was winter. I didn't grow up somewhere where there were prominent changes of season. It was pretty much just hot or raining all the time, so I didn't really have a concept of the kind of mental challenges that come with winter and having shorter days and it being darker, and couldn't have really anticipated the way that that was going to affect me in terms of my mental health as well. So all in all, with all of that change and all of the things that I was learning to deal with, I found it really hard to manage, and I found myself feeling quite low. And because of that low mood, I wasn't really doing as much. I was struggling to wake up on time. I found myself kind of sleeping for long periods of time, or really struggling to get up early in the morning. I was struggling to do assignments and was procrastinating, not only just work-related things, but things that I enjoyed as well. I wasn't really doing anything that made me happy. I was struggling to get out and see people and just leave my room. It was really hard, and I think at that time I also felt quite hopeless about feeling better. I think as hard as it is to acknowledge that this was not a fun period of my life, I feel a lot better knowing that I can look back at that time and say that I've come a long way, and I feel a lot happier in my life in general. I feel a lot more settled and comfortable, and I think part of that has come with time, but part of why, or one of the bigger reasons why I think I've made a lot of progress since then, is because I started to challenge myself to do more things. A lot of the time when we're feeling very low, it can come with a lot of inactivity and withdrawal from things that make us feel good, and we lose that sense of pleasure in the things that we enjoy. I've also since learned a lot more about managing low mood in general, and today I wanted to talk a bit about one of the ways in which CBT, or cognitive behavioural therapy, can be used to challenge low mood and help us when we're struggling. struggling with that inactivity aspect of low mood. For context, CBT is, generally speaking, one of the more evidence-based approaches that are used in therapy, and the aim of it is to challenge the negative thoughts and beliefs that you might have and ideally shift them towards more positive thinking patterns. But that's a very brief and generalized summary of CBT. So I think the very first step, if you're feeling low, is to acknowledge the feeling. I think sometimes when we're feeling any sort of negative emotion, it's really hard to let ourselves feel that way. We want to change it. We don't want to feel that way, and whether that comes with avoiding the feeling or trying to focus on other feelings or telling ourselves positive affirmations or that we should just feel better. None of those things really help us to feel better, and if anything, they can kind of make us feel worse. So acknowledge the feeling. Let yourself accept that this is how you feel right now. It's not how you're going to feel forever, but it is how you're feeling right now, and that's okay. And for whatever reason you're feeling sad or low, and even if there isn't an identifiable reason, it's okay to feel that way, and it's perfectly normal to experience low mood. I think once you allow yourself to feel the feeling, we can kind of work towards visualizing it and understanding it a bit better and thinking about how it is affecting your life in general. So once you feel like you're at a stage where you're ready to, or you're wanting to make that change, I think the first step in that respect is to visualize it. And one of the ways in which CBT visualizes it is thinking about it as a negative cycle. I think I'll put a picture on the screen of what this looks like if you're watching the video version of this podcast. But essentially what we're trying to look at are 4 different aspects. So we're thinking about our thoughts, our emotions, our physical sensations, and our behaviours. So in terms of reflection, this is a great model to start thinking about how each of these areas fit for you, and also creating that awareness of the cycle and the way that they're impacting each other and unintentionally enabling each other. So the first place to start might be to think about your emotions. Maybe that's the easiest place to start, but of course you can start at any 4 of those points. You don't have to start with emotions, but for the sake of this, I'm going to choose to start with emotions. The question would be like, what do you notice yourself feeling? Is it sad? Is it depressed? Is it low? And maybe those are the more obvious emotions that you're feeling. But it could also be things like you notice yourself feeling more irritable, you notice yourself feeling frustrated. These are emotions that might come with feeling low, and things to acknowledge as well. And once you have a good grasp on the emotions that you might be feeling, maybe you could consider what are the physical sensations that you're feeling with that. So do you notice maybe you have low energy, feeling very fatigued all of the time? These are very natural things to feel when you're feeling low. And perhaps in that cycle as well, maybe that affects your thoughts. So maybe you notice yourself, or the question you could ask yourself is, what thoughts do you notice? Do you notice yourself feeling or thinking, things like I'm worthless, I don't do anything, I always procrastinate, things like this. Those are just examples, but notice the thoughts that come up for you and think about specifically what are the things that you're telling yourself when you notice yourself feeling low. And then in turn with all of this, how is all of this affecting your behaviour? And this can be in 2 different aspects. So it could be in terms of what are the things that you're avoiding doing, and what are the things that you're engaging with more. So in terms of avoidance, it might be I'm avoiding doing my schoolwork, or I'm avoiding seeing my friends, I'm avoiding eating regular meals, or doing exercise and moving my body. In terms of things that you could be engaging with more, it could be I'm spending more time doom scrolling on my phone, or I'm spending more time in bed, and I'm struggling to get up. What are the behaviours that you're avoiding, and what are the behaviours that you're engaging with more? And it doesn't necessarily matter at this point whether they're things that you want to be doing, because that's for later. The first step is just thinking about what is my current situation and how can I map it onto this model. Once we have that visual model of how these 4 different sectors of our life are influencing each other, it allows us to have a greater awareness of the impact that this low mood is having on our lives. We notice that we're feeling sad, we have these negative thoughts, in turn we feel really drained, and then we struggle to do things, and because we struggle to do things, then we end up feeling worse. We continue to think these negative thoughts, and the cycle goes on. Our aim, after we've created some sense of awareness, is to focus on how we can break this cycle and how we can address one of these areas in order to make that change. So in CBT, the most common way that we address low mood in general is through behavioural activation, which is a tool that is used to focus on the behaviour aspect, as the name may indicate, of the 4 kind of areas in the negative cycle, and thinking about the things that we can do more of or do less of in order to ideally break the cycle and help us to feel better in ourselves. So in behavioural activation, or BA, it breaks down the kinds of activities that you might do into 3 different categories. So we're thinking about routine, what are the kind of day-to-day activities that you're engaging with. This might be things like chores, so like washing the dishes, doing the laundry, things like this that you need to do every day and you kind of naturally do in some sort of routine. It can even be things like taking a shower and brushing your teeth. The second is necessary, so things that you need to do in order to avoid negative consequences. So that might be like doing your taxes, paying your bills, going to the doctor, getting your medication, things that you don't necessarily do every single day, but things that you need to do and that are important to do. And then the final or third category is pleasurable, so the things that you enjoy doing and the things that make you happy. This might be engaging with your hobbies or seeing friends, family, generally speaking the things, whatever it is, the things that make you feel good. So when we're feeling low, it's often the case that we avoid doing one or more of these categories of behaviour, and with BA our aim is to address that by slowly increasing our activity in one or more of these areas in order to break that cycle, as I was talking about earlier, and help us to feel better and ideally kind of reverse that cycle and create a more upwards cycle instead of maintaining that negative downward spiral. So I know that was kind of a lot of information, but in terms of where to actually start with all of this, maybe the place to start is thinking about your average week. So what are the tasks that you are currently engaging with? And it could be thinking about this in terms of actually planning it onto like a weekly planner, so maybe visualizing each day of the week and writing down all of the things that you're doing. It could also be thinking about them in terms of categories. So those 3 categories that I mentioned, routine, necessary and pleasurable, thinking about what are the activities that you're doing every week and how does this fit into each of those categories. And that might help you to see whether there are one or more areas that are lacking and that are areas that you want to address. The second step would be to think about what are the activities that you would like to be doing. So you could also categorize this in terms of routine, necessary and pleasurable, but you don't have to. And just thinking about if you had to write down anything that you think of that right now this is what you want to be doing, what are those things? Is it that you want to engage more with some of your hobbies and you notice that that's the thing that's kind of lacking? Is it that you want to do more chores and that's the thing that you're struggling with, those kind of routine day-to-day activities? It could literally be anything. And the other side of that as well is thinking about other things that you'd like to stop doing. So are there behaviours like, for example, doom scrolling a lot or spending a lot of time on your phone that you would like to address and you don't want to keep doing? And the important thing to note with this is it's not about thinking of the ways in which you're going to address these right now, it's just thinking about what are the activities. And then the third question that I would ask myself is to think about what do I want to prioritize? So with all of this, it's really important to remember that this change isn't going to happen overnight, as frustrating as that might feel. And it really takes small action and small steps every single day to get you to where you want to be. So instead of taking it all on at once, thinking about what are maybe 1 or 2 activities that I want to focus on perhaps in the next coming week or few weeks that will help me to slowly work towards where I want to be. It really is key that when we're thinking about addressing our low mood and working towards being more active and doing more things, that we start small. It's really easy to overwhelm ourselves with all of these things that we want to do because we haven't had the energy to do them and we just want to get them done and feel better. But it really is starting small, and that's why I think, relating to what I was talking about earlier, it's really important to allow yourself to feel the feeling. It's not how you want to feel, and of course nobody wants to feel negatively, but when we try to force ourselves to feel differently than how we actually are, I think it just makes things so much more difficult for us. So starting small and letting it be a journey, let it grow over time, and don't force it to be something that it's not right now. Start with small activities and build it up over time. I think another thing to bear in mind as well is to be adaptable, and to remember that it might be that you try to engage with one of the activities and it's difficult and it's challenging, and that makes sense because you're feeling low and the first steps to kind of getting out of that negative cycle are going to be really challenging. But acknowledging that and also working towards being more adaptable, allowing your goals and the way that you're visualizing these tasks to change is maybe what will help to work towards breaking that cycle. So thinking about an example, say one of your goals is to go to the gym like 4 times a week, and at the moment you're not going at all. It's easy to then jump in and say, okay, next week I'm going to go 4 times a week, and immediately try to reach that goal. And it's not to say that being ambitious is a bad thing or whatever, but it's more to say that you need to meet yourself where you're at. So maybe that might look like going to the gym once in that week and that being your goal for the week. And if going to the gym once a week feels like a struggle, which is completely valid if it does, then adapting that and saying, how can I make this a smaller task so that I can actually achieve it? Maybe that might look like following a YouTube video or doing a home workout. That means you don't have to go somewhere to do it, but you still get that benefit of doing some exercise and moving my body. And the hope is with doing this that once you achieve this task and you engage with this behavior, you can then feel that benefit emotionally, and in turn hopefully that improves your energy levels and you start to notice those negative thoughts are not so strong or salient, and over time that cycle then maintains itself as you continue to build up the tasks that you're doing and work towards improving your mood. I really want to include this very, very important note that for a lot of us, when we're feeling low, these things can feel very unattainable. And I talk about these things and provide this, education and tool for people who feel that they are in a position to take it on. But I really want to emphasize that it's okay if you're not in a position where you feel that you're able to deal with this and you feel that you're able to take it on. I'm not trying to convey with this that if you just do more, you'll feel better, because that's very simplistic and not at all the reality for a lot of us. And above all of this, I think the most important question to ask yourself is, where are you at right now? What is your capacity to do things right now? And it's okay if the answer to that question is that you're struggling and you don't have the capacity to take on these tasks. And that is why therapists and clinicians exist. They're trained to help you and trained to guide you and support you through this and get you to a point where you feel like you can manage this on your own. It's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to need support. And I'm sharing this with the intention of trying to make this more accessible for people who might not have access to as many more resources. But if you're in a position where you can and are able to access support and you know that you need it, be honest with yourself, and there is no shame in reaching out and getting that support that you need. need at this point in your life. If you know that you're in need of more support and need some guidance and some resources, I will link below some self-help resources, but also some helplines and people to talk to if you're in a position where you need that immediate help. Please do not wait to seek out help. There is absolutely no shame and nothing wrong with asking for help and support, especially when you're dealing with low emotions. This was something that I did when I was struggling, as I mentioned, in the transition to university. I reached out to my university counselling support, and whether or not that support is immediately helpful, it's still nice to just have somebody to talk to and reach out to people and show yourself that you're allowed to do that and not feel like you have to go through it alone. So, in summary, low mood is a very common and normal experience to have, and I think it's something we all experience. And creating awareness of your low mood is a very good place to start in order to work towards addressing it, particularly in terms of the inactivity aspect that we might experience with low mood. Once we're able to understand how low mood is affecting us and work towards doing more things that make us feel good and the things that we need to do, and show ourselves that evidence that we can do these things and make ourselves feel better and hopefully reverse that negative cycle that we are unintentionally maintaining and holding on to. With small efforts every single day, you can get to a place where you're feeling better, and it just takes time. Be gentle with yourself and go at your own pace. There is no race, there's no competition, it's just you, and do it at the pace that feels right for you. I hope that you found something that you can take from this episode, and I look forward to speaking with you